My name is Ryan. I'm from Michigan, but I've lived in Wyoming for over a year now. The wind cut through my jacket as I stepped outside, trash bag slung over one shoulder. The apartment's back lot was nearly empty, just my car and someone else's dented truck parked near the dumpster. The streetlights didn't reach this far. The only glow came from the liquor store sign a block away, flickering neon red over asphalt. I dropped the bag into the dumpster and turned to go back inside. That's when I saw an old desk lamp sitting in the snow, half buried against the dumpster's side. It wasn't much to look at. Where there were 4 springs, there were now only 2. Rust framed the brass finish, and the metal shade was bent like someone kicked it across the pavement. But I needed a lamp. The apartment was dark, especially in the evenings when the overhead light buzzed and sizzled like it was dying. I hesitated for half a second, then picked it up, knocking some ice off the base. Snow crunched under my boots as I walked back inside. The apartment smelled like the cheap vanilla candles my uncle stocked at the register, one of the few things I'd bothered to take from the store. I set the lamp down on the counter, nudging aside an unopened stack of bills. I'd lived here for almost a year, and the place still didn't feel like mine. The walls were full of things my sister hung when I first moved in. It wasn't her place, but my life depressed her on many levels. The couch sagged in the middle, and the kitchen table was a hand-me-down from my cousin, its surface scratched. The apartment wasn't terrible. It wasn't much of anything, good or bad. I turned the lamp over looking for the switch. My fingers ran over the rusted base, searching blindly along the metal. Nothing. I tried twisting the top, jiggling the cord. Still nothing. I sighed and ran my thumb over the surface one last time, pressing at a spot where the rust felt smoother. That's when the air shifted. Not a breeze, not a draft from the window, something deeper than that, like the room itself exhaled. The overhead light dimmed to a dull hum, and the vanilla-scented candle flickered wildly in its glass. Then, with a pop of static electricity, the lamp was gone. No, not gone. Replaced. A man stood where the lamp had been, leaning lazily against my kitchen counter like he'd been there all along. He was young, early 20s at most, with a shaved head. His jeans were ripped, not in the trendy way, but like they'd been through actual disasters. His brown tank top hung from him in a way that suggested he hadn't changed clothes in a while. And he was staring at me, like I was the one who'd appeared out of nowhere. Like I was the one who needed to start providing answers immediately. I took a step back. He didn't move. "Okay," I said, very carefully. "I'm either dead, dreaming, or losing my mind, or simply, you're just here to rob me." The guy exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. "The name's Eugene. You're not dead," he said, his voice rough like he hadn't used it in a while. "You've got nothing to rob, and if I have to explain, again, that I am not a genie, I swear to—" I turned around and walked straight to my bedroom. I shut the door, locked it, and sat on the bed. The apartment was silent. Outside, the wind rattled the windows, the same as always. I stared at my hands. They weren't shaking. I wasn't shaking. Clearly, something was very wrong with me. At least I was clear enough to know that. I didn't try to sleep. I told myself I would, but instead, I sat there, staring at the ceiling, listening for movement in the other room. The wind rattled against the window, the heater groaned, and beyond that, nothing. I know I imagined the whole episode, but I had no idea what this was. Delusions? Did I hit my head? I don't remember, and there was no pain, no wounds. Maybe I was having some kind of stress-induced breakdown. Maybe I'd been working at the liquor store too long, inhaling secondhand cigarette smoke and the slow decay of my own ambitions. Eventually, I pushed myself upright. My stomach was empty, and my mouth felt dry. I swung my legs over the side of the bed, preparing myself. When I stepped back into the living room, the lamp was still gone. and Eugene was digging through my fridge. I stopped in the doorway, gripping the frame. He glanced over his shoulder like this was the most normal thing in the world, holding a half-empty bottle of coffee creamer. "You don't have much in here," he said. I opened my mouth to speak before realizing how ridiculous this all was. Then I checked the back of my head for bleeding or something, but there was nothing but hair. He sighed. "Right, I forgot. You're at the stage where you think you're hallucinating." I stared. He took a swig straight from the creamer bottle, winced, and put it back. "Gross." "Okay," I said slowly. "Let's pretend I'm not hallucinating. Who the hell are you?" He dropped onto the couch and stretched out, his boots knocking against my coffee table. "I'm Eugene, like I already said," he said, like that explained anything. "And before you ask, no, I am not a genie." I stared harder. I'm just trying to figure out why you're in my apartment." He exhaled through his nose. "You brought me in, remember?" "I know what it looks like. But technically, I'm not a genie. Technically, I'm a guy from 1999 who was," he waved a hand, "unceremoniously cursed into a lamp." I pulled out a chair and sat, mostly because my legs weren't feeling particularly steady. "You were cursed?" "Correct." "Into a lamp?" "Correct." I dragged a hand down my face. "Great. Fantastic. And you have magic?" Eugene's expression flickered like he wasn't sure whether to look proud or embarrassed. "Define magic." I pointed to the coffee mug on the table still sitting out from morning. "Make that float." He lifted a hand and flicked his fingers. The mug wobbled, lifted a few inches, then abruptly tilted sideways, dumping cold coffee across the table before clattering back down. We both stared at the mess. Eugene cleared his throat. "Okay, in my defense..." "Oh my God," I whispered. "I haven't had a lot of practice. It's not like there's a Magic for Dummies manual floating around. Well, at least not a real one." I pressed my fingers into my temples. "So, let me get this straight. You're not a genie. You are cursed. You have magic, but it sucks. And you're an old rusty desk lamp, or you came from one." Eugene pointed at me. "I take offense to that." "And you have no idea how this happened." Eugene dropped his arm and looked at the ceiling, like I'd asked him to recite ancient history. "Vaguely. I was at a party. There was a girl and a guy. Things got weird, and then, poof, lamp, I blinked. You got cursed at a party." "I know how it sounds. Do you?" Eugene groaned and threw his head back. "Look, the important thing is, I don't want to be here. So, if you could quickly learn 1,000 years worth of sorcery, and I don't know, break the curse or whatever, that'd be great." I stared at him, then at the coffee-soaked table, then back at him. Without a word, I got up, walked to my bedroom, and shut the door behind me. Again. "Wait," Eugene called. "You're seriously doing this again? You don't even have anything to eat, and your milk tastes like concentrated hazelnut." I turned off the light. "You're just ignoring me?" I pulled the blanket over my head. "You're kind of an asshole, you know that?" Silence. After a moment, I heard him sigh, followed by the creak of the couch as he flopped down onto it. I stared into the darkness, trying very hard to pretend that my life had not, in fact, taken a sharp, magical, and extremely irritating turn. I didn't know what else to do. Call my sister? My uncle? Then end up in a psych hold? Or just let whatever happened to me play out until I can return to normalcy? I woke up to the sound of the TV blaring in the next room, some old sitcom's laugh track rattling the walls. For a second, I thought I'd dreamed everything. But then I walked into the living room and saw Eugene stretched across my couch, eating a sleeve of saltine crackers like it was a fine meal. He had one leg slung over the back of the couch, my favorite hoodie draped over his shoulders, and an empty soda can balanced precariously on his chest. He glanced up mid-crunch. "Oh, hey, you don't snore as much as I thought you would." I stared. You don't sleep? Nah, I just get bored. He shoved another cracker into his mouth and gestured toward the TV. Do you know how much television you've missed? It's honestly embarrassing. I gritted my teeth. Eugene? Yes? You live in a lamp. He clicked his tongue. Not by choice. So why are you still here? He waved his hand in a vague circle. I don't know. Warm vibes. The fine dining choices. My cute, gracious host. I walked past him into the kitchen, pretending this wasn't happening. The fridge was half empty, and most of what remained was raided. The creamer was empty and bottle placed back in the fridge. The bag of chips I'd planned to take to work. Gone. Even my emergency ramen stash looked tampered with. I turned back toward him slowly. Did you eat everything? Eugene shifted, clearly unbothered. No, clearly I have not. I exhaled through my nose. Can't you teleport somewhere else? I could, but then I wouldn't get to hang out with you. He grinned like this was supposed to be flattering. Besides, you're the one who rubbed me, and I was thinking you could do it again if you wanted. I sat at the table. Fine. You are a genie. But I already said I'm not a genie. All right, I said. Whatever you are, how can I help you out of this lamp thing? I guess if I piece together how I get here to begin with. I looked at him and made a face when he didn't continue. Eugene stretched, cracking his knuckles. New Year's Eve, 1999. I got obliterated. Met some girl and her boyfriend. He smiled. Maybe another person? Anyway, next thing I know, I wake up with a killer hangover and a permanent lease on a Target desk lamp. I rubbed my temples. That's it? He shrugged. It was the 90s. I stared at him. That doesn't explain anything. I know. He leaned forward, mouth full of crackers. Do you know how many people I've had to explain this to? The worst part is that I'm pretty sure I did it to myself. I squinted. You cursed yourself? No. He waved a cracker at me. I mean, I was probably being an asshole. Like I must have pissed someone off, right? I sighed. Maybe you pissed off a witch after sleeping with her. And her boyfriend, he said. I blinked. It was a joke. But he wasn't listening. His gaze went distant, like something clicked. Slowly, he leaned over the coffee table and grabbed the old brass lamp. He turned it over, squinting at the base. There, scratched into the metal, were the words, "You suck, Eugene. Enjoy the lamp. L." I looked at him. L. Eugene groaned and flopped back against the couch. Laura Kincaid. I raised an eyebrow. She was at the party, into some weird shit. Hung out with this guy. What was his name? Greg? Graham? He made an exasperated sound. They were kind of a package deal. Super intense. I might have hooked up with both of them. Then I might have moved on to someone else right away. I rubbed my face. So, let me get this straight. You ghosted a girl who was really into witchcraft, yeah? Then you slept with her boyfriend? And don't forget her best friend. Have you ever been tested? I asked. Magic doesn't get crabs, he said. So, anyway, I continued, you think she cursed you? Eugene dragged his hands down his face. I mean, it makes sense. Look at that inscription. That's vengeful. Nasty. Nasty is sticking your in 3 different people in the same night. Same hour, my friend, and anyway, I'm a different person now, totally changed and all that. How so? Well, for starters, I've spent a quarter century in purgatory, which is 24 years, 11 months, and 3 weeks longer than I needed to learn my lesson. He was right to an extent. I picked up the lamp, turning it over in my hands. The scratches were deep, deliberate. So, I said slowly, how do we find Laura Kincaid? Finding Laura Kincaid took less effort than I expected. I pulled out my laptop, typed her name into a search engine, and within minutes, we were staring at an Etsy shop with a pastel color scheme and a banner that read, Laura Kincaid's Mystical Emporium. Ethically sourced crystals, candles, and custom spells. A laugh burst out of me. "What's so funny?" he said. "You got cursed by an Etsy witch." "I don't know what that means." I smiled but didn't explain. I scrolled past the rose quartz necklaces and lavender-infused spell jars. "I don't see a removing ancient hexes section, but she's got a 5-star rating, so that's something." Eugene leaned over my shoulder. His smelled like the last of my peanut butter. "She forgot about me, didn't she?" "Only one way to find out." I clicked the contact button. Eugene backed away like I'd drawn a knife. "Whoa, no. Bad idea. Terrible idea." I turned to face him. "You have nothing to lose." "I have my dignity." "Where?" I asked. "I'd love to see it." He scowled. I clicked into the message box. "You need to apologize." Eugene scoffed. "You think some half-assed sorry is going to break a 25-year curse?" "It can't hurt." I crossed my arms. "Go on then. Dictate your apology." Eugene rolled his shoulders, cracked his neck, and began. "Hey, lady, it's Eugene. Remember me? So funny story. I'm trapped in a lamp. No hard feelings, but you should fix it now." I stared at him. "What?" He shrugged. Short, sweet, to the point, and I didn't even say anything about her getting old. "That is the worst thing I've ever read." He flopped onto the couch. "Then you try it, Shakespeare." I turned back to the laptop and deleted his nonsense. Then I started typing. "Hello, Laura. You probably don't remember me, but we met at a party on New Year's Eve in 1999. I was an idiot back then, and I think I might have done something to hurt you. If I did, I'm genuinely sorry. I don't expect anything from you. I wanted to take responsibility, even if it's years late. Hope you're doing well. Eugene." I leaned back. "There, that's an apology." Eugene read it over my shoulder. "You made me sound like a real person. Weird." I hit send. Eugene groaned. "What if she makes it worse?" "She runs a candle shop." I gestured at the screen. "Worst case scenario, she sells you a scented hex." Eugene flopped onto his back, dramatically draping an arm over his face. "You do realize this is the first time I've ever apologized for anything, right?" "Tragic," I said. We sat in silence for a moment. The email was out in the universe. No taking it back now. Then my laptop pinged. We both stared at the screen. Laura Kincaid replied. I opened the message. "OMG, Eugene. LMAO, I totally forgot about that. I forgave you years ago. No hard feelings. Hope you're doing well." Eugene blinked. I scrolled down, but that was it. That was the whole response. Eugene made a strange, choked sound. He stared at his hands for a minute or two before looking at me with fear and sincerity I hadn't seen in him yet. Something was working. I slowly turned to look at him. "You mean to tell me you've been stuck in a lamp for 25 years, and all you had to do was say sorry?" Eugene's mouth opened and closed. We stared at each other. Then we stared at the screen. Neither of us spoke. It started small. Eugene reached for the TV remote from across the room, expecting it to float over like it always did. Instead, it stayed where it was. He waved his fingers, concentrating, but nothing happened. I noticed his confusion and smirked. "Having trouble? It's fine." He shook out his hands like that would fix it. "It's probably just lag." "Right, genie lag." He ignored me, squaring his shoulders. "Okay, fine, watch this." He snapped his fingers, aiming for a dramatic exit. Normally, he'd vanish in a showy puff of smoke. This time, there was a sad little fizzle, like a firework that never went off. I laughed. "Wow, so majestic." Eugene glared. "It's not funny." "Oh, it's absolutely funny. Besides, I thought this was exactly what you wanted." He stomped into the kitchen, grabbed my coffee mug, and tried to float it into the sink. Instead, it fell mid-air, shattering across the tile. Eugene's jaw clenched. He was trying to play it off, but I could see the tension creeping in. The lamp was a prison, sure, but it was also all he'd known for 25 years. Now, the only thing keeping him tethered to this weird half-life was slipping away, and I had no idea what that meant for him. He kicked at a piece of the broken mug, shoving his hands in his pockets. Guess that's it then. I raised an eyebrow. What, you thought she was lying? No, he said. Then quieter. I didn't think it'd actually work. Something about the way he said it made my stomach twist. We stood there for a second, the apartment too quiet. Then he exhaled and forced a grin. Well, looks like you're free of me, huh? I blinked. What? Eugene gestured vaguely. No more magic, no more freeloading ghost of 1999 eating all your food. It was nice while it lasted. I stared at him. You're leaving? He hesitated, then laughed like I'd made a joke. Duh? I didn't say anything. His smile faded. What? I ran a hand through my hair, searching for the right words. You've been stuck in a lamp for 2 decades. Where the hell are you even gonna go? Eugene shrugged. I don't know. I'll figure it out. That's not an answer. He rolled his eyes, but there was something forced about it. What do you care? You'll get your normal, boring life back. I opened my mouth, then closed it. Was that what I wanted? He was a pain in the ass. He drank my creamer, hijacked my TV, and left saltine crumbs all over my couch. And now, suddenly, the idea of him not being here felt wrong. Like I would be forcing a homeless person on the street. Not even a homeless person. Homeless people have more advantage than what he would have, and they had none. But at least they know what Wi-Fi and social media are. I exhaled, forcing my voice to stay even. Look, if you need time to figure things out, you can stay here, for a little while. Eugene froze. Then he laughed, shaking his head. Nah, you don't want that. Don't tell me what I want. He met my eyes, something unreadable passing over his expression. For a second, I thought he might say something real. Then he smirked, all lazy confidence, like none of this mattered. Cute, but I'll be fine. Before I could respond, he turned, grabbed my jacket, and walked out the door. I stared at the empty space of the doorway. The apartment wasn't quiet, the fridge hummed, the pipes rattled faintly in the walls, but it felt empty in a way that had nothing to do with noise. I rubbed at my temple. Unbelievable. I should have been relieved. I should have been celebrating getting my life back. Instead, I found myself standing in the middle of my living room, arms crossed, scowling at nothing. I didn't have to worry about him anymore, this strange, human-like creature who invaded my home. So why did it all feel so wrong? I decided to go after him, as stupid as it sounded. I shoved my feet into my shoes, grabbed my coat, and swung the door wide open. As I was in the process of running out, I came an inch from his face, like he stood there the whole time. Yeah, it's too cold out there, he said. I gawked at him. Are you? You're serious. Dead serious. He walked past me and back to the couch, then stretched like he'd had the hardest day imaginable. You'd be so boring without me. I stared. That's your reason. Yup, he said, then flicked his gaze to the TV. Now, what did you do with the remote? Is Roseanne still on rerun? No, I said. He grinned, infuriatingly pleased with himself, and leaned back like he owned the place. I could have kicked him out. I could have demanded he figured out his life elsewhere, reminded him that I was not, in fact, running a charity for wayward ex-genies. But then he would just tell me that he wasn't a genie. So instead, I sighed through my nose and grabbed the remote. Fine. Eugene smiled. I gave him a look, then flipped through the channels until I landed on something. The opening credits of a cooking competition rolled across the screen. Eugene squinted at it. This is what we're watching. You don't like it, you can leave. Again. His smirk widened. Nah, this time I think I'll stay. He propped his feet up on the table and settled in like he belonged here. And somehow, that didn't feel like a bad thing.